Deep in the North Atlantic, where the ocean stretches vast and unforgiving, lies a small, rugged island known only as Oakhaven. It was less a name on a map and more a whisper among the few fishermen whose paths occasionally grazed its craggy shores. For generations, Oakhaven was home to a tight-knit community of around 50 souls: fishermen, their families, a lighthouse keeper, and a handful of hardy farmers. Their lives were a quiet symphony of predictable rhythms: the ebb and flow of tides, the seasonal catches, the solitary beam of the lighthouse cutting through the perpetual mist. It was a life untouched by the hurried pace of the mainland, a world unto itself, until it wasn't. The year was 1952. The date was October 14th. The day began as any other, with the salty tang of the sea air, the cry of gulls, and the distant drone of fishing boats heading out before dawn. The small community of Oakhaven was settling into its routine. Children were likely preparing for lessons in the single schoolhouse, women tending to chores, and the men who hadn't gone to sea were mending nets or repairing boats. The weather was typical for autumn in that region, a persistent, heavy fog that often hugged the coast, making the lighthouse a crucial sentinel. There were no reports of storms, no unusual seismic activity, no warnings of any kind, just the ordinary monotonous hum of life. Yet something happened that night, something profound and utterly inexplicable. The exact hour remains a mystery, swallowed by the ocean's vast indifference. All that is known is that when the sun rose on October 15th, the island of Oakhaven was silent. Not the natural quiet of a sleeping village, but a deeper, more unsettling stillness. No smoke drifted from chimneys, no fishing boats bobbed in the small harbour, no children's laughter carried on the wind. The lighthouse, usually a beacon of steadfast light, stood dark and inert. The first sign that something was terribly wrong came 2 days later, on October 17th. The supply vessel, the Sea Serpent, captained by Thomas Blackwood, arrived on its bi-weekly delivery run from the mainland. Captain Blackwood had been making this trip for 20 years, knew the rhythms of Oakhaven like his own heartbeat. He expected to see figures on the dock, ready to unload provisions, eager for news from the outside world. Instead, he found an empty, echoing harbour. A light drizzle was falling, clinging to the mist-shrouded trees. The only sound was the gentle lapping of waves against the deserted shore. Blackwood waited. An hour passed, then another. Growing increasingly uneasy, he sounded the Sea Serpent's horn, a deep, booming call that usually brought the villagers scurrying. Silence. Only the gulls responded, circling overhead with their mournful cries. With a knot tightening in his stomach, Blackwood ordered 2 of his crewmen to accompany him ashore. The 3 men stepped onto the weathered dock, their boots thudding hollowly on the wet planks. The air was thick with the scent of salt and damp earth, but also something else. An absence, an unnerving void where life should have been. They moved through the small village, their voices hushed, calling out names that received no reply. The doors to the homes stood ajar, some swinging gently in the breeze. Inside, time had seemingly frozen. A half-eaten meal sat on a kitchen table, a fork still resting beside a plate of stew. A child's toy lay abandoned on the floor of a living room. In the schoolhouse, slates bore unfinished lessons. Books lay open on bedsides. The general store was unlocked, its ledger open to the last entry. There was no sign of struggle, no overturned furniture, no broken windows. Nothing to suggest a violent intrusion or a hasty flight. It was as if an invisible hand had simply lifted them away, one by one, or perhaps all at once. Every single resident of Oakhaven, all 50 souls, had vanished. The search that followed was extensive, but fruitless. Mainland authorities, alerted by Captain Blackwood, dispatched Coast Guard vessels and search planes. They scoured the island itself, combing through the dense forests, exploring caves and scaling cliffs. They
dragged the surrounding waters, they found nothing. No bodies, no debris, no messages. The island was utterly, completely empty. The fishing boats that should have been in the harbour were gone too, all 6 of them. But even if they had put out to sea, how could an entire population, including women, children, and the elderly, have embarked simultaneously on such a desperate, unplanned voyage without a trace? Further investigation only deepened the mystery. The lighthouse, found dark, was determined to have simply run out of fuel. The keeper, presumed to be among the missing, had apparently failed to replenish it. Why? It was a simple, vital task, one he had performed without fail for decades. Furthermore, the island's small generator, which supplied power to a few homes, was still running, steadily churning out electricity to an empty village. Why leave it on? It made no sense. There were no signs of a struggle, no indication of a mass exodus, no footprints leading anywhere but into the dense undergrowth that quickly reclaimed the paths. The very earth of Oakhaven seemed to have swallowed its inhabitants whole. Over the decades, theories have been whispered, debated, and dismissed. Was it a coordinated, secret evacuation orchestrated by some unknown entity? A mass delusion driving everyone into the sea? Some spoke of a rogue wave, a tsunami that swept the entire village away, but the evidence didn't support it. The houses were still standing, largely undisturbed. Others spoke of something more sinister, something supernatural lurking in the dense fogs that so often blanketed Oakhaven. A creature from the deep, a phantom ship, or perhaps a doorway to another realm. But these were the desperate explanations of those confronted with an impossible truth. The case of Oakhaven remains officially unsolved, a chilling footnote in the annals of maritime mysteries. The buildings still stand, slowly decaying, reclaimed by the relentless march of nature.